to live according to values that we shared. But it's too hard for all the people who want to be here to live here. And many who want to stay aren't sure they can. I want to work to change that. As a criminal defense attorney with a commitment to public defense, I've spent my career working for fairness. Now I'm running here because I want to serve this community, my home, in a broader way. I believe my work as a public defense lawyer will inform the debate as we work as a community to enact reforms, put in place policies to address systemic inequities, and find every avenue we can to make our city a part of the solution in the global climate crisis we're facing. You have 2 votes for City Councilor at Large, and I would be honored if one of your votes were for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jamila Gore, 2 minutes, please.
Hi, good evening. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Gazette for putting on this forum. I'm running for at-large councilor because I want to see a community that's thriving again, like it was when I moved here in 2006. I've lived here for 14 years. I'm an artist, a writer, a teacher, and I've seen the city decline in some ways. I've seen empty storefronts. I've seen the houselessness and housing situation get worse as I've lived here. And I want to be on the council to better those things. Community is where I come from. I'm the youngest of 6. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I have built this foundation of community from the time I was little. And I want to bring my knowledge of building community to the position of councilor at large. And I am a proponent of the Department of Community Care, the Community Resilience Hub, to help the houseless individuals in our community. I'm a proponent of Main Street for Everyone and Main Street redesign. And I also am a proponent of housing affordability. I think that all these issues need to be discussed in the council and need to be elevated to a space where we can talk about it openly in a dialogue with the public. So I would really appreciate it if you could give me one of your 2 votes on November 2nd for City Councilor at Large. And I thank you for your time and thank you for attending this forum.
Thank you very much. Michael Quinlan, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Quinlan. I am the City Councilor in Northampton's Ward 1. My life is woven with Northampton in the fabric. I was born here at Cooley Dickinson Hospital. We lived in East Hampton at the time as renters, but in 1975, my father was hired to teach at Smith Vocational, and getting into the teachers union there gave my parents the financial stability to buy a home. We moved into a house on 5th Avenue in Northampton, right down the street from the YMCA, and I attended the local schools, Vernon Street School, Jackson Street, JFK, and Northampton High. I also have an associate's degree from Holyoke Community College. My young adulthood was spent teaching. I taught at early childhood education at the Nonotuck Community School when it was at the St. John's Church on Smith campus. And my wife was an early childhood educator as well. But eventually I chose to leave the profession to work at Big Y, where I could make in 40 hours what I was making in 60. We moved back here in 2003, my wife and I, so that our children would attend the schools here. And I've been really honored to be a part of the community as a parent, as well as the history as a student. My time on the council has been through a pandemic and through lots of challenges. But one thing that I would say is on the council and as a member of the Policing Review Commission, I've learned a lot about the opportunities for Northampton to explore our community's health and safety. And I'm honored to be part of this powerful conversation. I am also an advocate for the Department of Community Care. And I am looking forward to being part of the council to address recovery from COVID through the $22 million in ARPA money that the city will get to spend to help recover and really grow from this, not just put Band-Aids on things. Beyond that, I am also looking forward to learning more about climate crisis and what else I can do as a counselor and as a Northampton community member to address that here. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Gazette for putting on this forum and inviting me to participate.
Thank you very much. David Murphy, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. I think there's some agreement between the candidates as to the issues of this campaign. I hear again and again about Main Street redesign, police reform in the new Department of Community Care, affordable housing and the impact of zoning changes intended to increase the housing supply, the importance of expanding the availability of high-speed internet service throughout the city, sustainability, and our downtown street life and revival of business after COVID. While there's no disagreement about the issues, it's left to the voters to decide what two candidates are best equipped to address those issues. As a candidate, I'm the only one to bring 14 years of service on the city council into this race. If elected, I'll be number 2 in seniority on the new council. 4 of those 14 years, I chaired the council's finance committee and have a complete understanding of municipal finance. As a real estate professional for over 40 years, I also understand zoning, the housing market, and was involved in both the 155 Pleasant Street and the Lumberyard affordable housing projects. From being a member of the city committee that first brought cable TV to Northampton 40 years ago, to my work for NBC Sports in Tokyo this summer, bringing the Olympic Games live streaming to an American audience, I understand what a game changer truly high-speed internet will make to our city's future. I'm also pleased to announce that I've received the endorsement of New England PBA Local 186 that represents Northampton's police patrol officers. The hardworking members of Local 186 are prepared to work with the new Department of Community Care and absolutely deserve the support of all of Northampton's elected officials. While Northampton has made reasonable progress in sustainability, we must continue our efforts. I would encourage the Planning and Sustainability Department, along with the city's energy officer, to seek additional grant funding to continue to reduce the city's carbon footprint. This is a substantial agenda for the next 2 years, and I look forward to your support and the opportunity to serve on the Northampton City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now call on Jean Cherdak of the League of Women Voters to ask the first question from among those submitted by members of the community.
What is your position on the Main Street redesign?
Thank you, Jean. And we will answer it in the following order. David Murphy, you'll answer first. Marissa Elkins, you're second. Jamila Gore, you're third. And Michael Quinlan, you'll be fourth. Beginning with you then, David Murphy, you have 60 seconds.
Well, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, I'm a lifetime resident of Northampton, and nothing really substantial has happened in my recent memory. And I don't think we can squander this opportunity. There are different issues to address. We have to continue to support the business community, so we can't take away all of their parking. We need to provide more space for pedestrians and safe space for bicyclists. So all of these constituencies, I think, need to be represented as best they can in the redesign. There are several options, and there has been considerable public input, but it's never enough. You know, we need to continue the dialogue, and we need to see to it that the different constituencies are encouraged to cooperate and accommodated as best they can be, given the limited amount of space we have to work with. But again, we can't squander this opportunity. It's more or less once in a lifetime, and I'm looking forward to the process.
Thank you. Marissa Elkins, 60 seconds.
Yes, I think this is an area I think you're going to find a lot of agreement among all of us running, which is to say that this is a great opportunity and to look to the future and to really put into practice Northampton's goals of resilience, also public safety, in terms of how that street operates for pedestrians and cyclists and for business owners. So I am very excited, and I've been enjoying watching the process so far, and would be looking forward to continuing that process. I would say of the options that are under consideration, option 3 is the most preferable. But I think that we can do more. We can be bolder. I think ideas that like Main Street for Everyone is putting forward for bigger tree canopy and for safer streets and more pedestrian friendly streets are exactly where we need to go with this project.
Thank you. Jamila Gore.
I think also that Design 3 is the best option for Main Street for Everyone. And I think that it needs to go further and take into account the climate emergency that we're currently under. We need more trees. We need more accessibility for public transportation. I personally take public transportation, and I think that we need to think about our future when we think about the redesign of Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds.
Thank you. I really agree here that design alternative number 3 was the best one. I was also really enlightened by a presentation from Main Street for Everyone on their suggestions for, a more green tree-lined Main Street. This was the highest priority for survey respondents, and design number 3 doesn't go far enough. So this group has now advocated for that. Attending a meeting recently of Main Street redesign discussion, you can see that the design team and our planning office have taken that under advisement. We originally, they had angled parking on both sides of the street, and they've already modified that to parallel on one side. Of course, we have to address parking for people with mobility issues, and we have to address parking for people that are running errands, getting in and out of town quickly. That all needs to be part of the discussion. My concern is, of course, that the design is coming to a close, and this discussion needs to continue. So I hope that we can definitely continue the discussion and work to make this even better design.
Thank you, Mr. Quillian. Thank you very much. All right. Our next question is from Dan Crowley of the Daily Hampshire Gazette.
Hi. First, it's great to be here and see all the candidates together and be part of the process. And to work with the league again. We've had a long history on these types of events and never virtually, so that's new. My question, what are the city's responsibilities to address the needs of the homeless population, and what solutions would you offer as an at-large city councilor?
Thank you very much. So we'll answer the question in the following order: Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore. Michael Quinlan, beginning with you, 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. This is a topic that obviously is quite popular discussion point around town. A lot of people, I've been out canvassing all the time, and a lot of people are asking about what can we do as a community. I mean, this is a pretty compassionate community, and I believe we're not looking for anything but to help people here. And one of the things that comes up often is that people that are houseless here may be houseless because there's not a place for them to be, because maybe, we experienced this last year when Holyoke and Amherst closed their shelters. Northampton's houseless population increased because we had an extra shelter open. So it's a regional issue. And I think that I would propose that together with our mayor, we engage in a greater discussion around Hampshire County, but also include Franklin and Hampden counties in this discussion, getting as many elected officials involved, and also connecting people to services that are available to try to combat this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Murphy, 60 seconds.
This is completely a regional issue. Well, I certainly don't mind Northampton as what was known as the county seat when there was a county actually hosting a facility. It's got to be the responsibility of the surrounding area to fund such a facility. The taxpayers of Northampton can't take on providing homeless services on our local tax rate. The state needs to play a role in it since there's no longer county government, or regional communities need to be compelled to contribute to a regional shelter, because these folks can't be left on the street. They can't be left without services. A facility needs to be constructed that has the characteristics to assist them, with showers, with laundry, with a place to stay warm in the winter. It's going to be an expensive proposition. It's a necessary proposition. Northampton makes sense as a place to house this facility, but there has to be a formula for funding where it doesn't fall completely on the taxpayers of the city of Northampton to support this facility. Whether that has to come from the state, whether there has to be a formula to have surrounding communities compelled to contribute to something if Northampton hosts it, I'm fine with that. But it absolutely has to be there, but it absolutely can't be solely the burden of the Northampton taxpayer to fund it. And I think that's very important to remember. We can host it, we can support it, but we can't totally financially support it. There has to be a mechanism for that.
Thank you. Marissa Elkins, 60 seconds.
Yes. So the first thing I would say about the houseless, the circumstances of the houseless community in Northampton is that it's difficult, but it's a good problem to have. It speaks to this community's compassion that we are a city that is welcoming and provides resources and speaks to that. I think I'm very supportive of getting, and I think it's very important that we get the Resilience Hub up and running as quickly as possible. I think it's very important that be key and central to the downtown community, because that is where the need is the greatest. I also think that the Department of Community Care has a real role in terms of our obligation to the houseless community and getting that up and running. I agree with everyone who's already spoken. Partnerships are key on these things. What I would say is already built into what these plans are is that regional partnerships, tapping into regional and state and federal opportunities to provide resources. So I prefer to focus on the compassion that is reflected by our community's willingness to meet our obligations in regard to the houseless community.
Thank you very much. Jamila Gore, 60 seconds.
I think that the Department of Community Care and the Resilience Hub, especially the Resilience Hub, is something that needs to be implemented in Northampton as soon as possible. I know it's been in the works for years, and it's something that the current mayor has worked on. And I think that if I'm elected to council, it's something that I really strive to get out there and working in the city, because we need a place for people to drop in, a place for people to get services, a place for people to get help if they need it. And we also would benefit from more single room occupancy units in Northampton, more affordable housing units in Northampton, more subsidized housing units in Northampton. I think all of these things could help mitigate our houselessness population problem. And I think it would help people find permanent solutions to houselessness and not temporary shelters or temporary places to stay. There's a lot of, temporary shelter type places that people have set up. And I think we need to look for more permanent solutions to houselessness and help people who are in need of it.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to make one quick note for the audience, and that's that we are not taking questions during the forum. Questions were requested by the league, and actually we got lots of them, and we're very pleased with the question selections that came in, and those have been sorted and prepared for the league questioner to ask. So we will not be taking questions from the audience, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Now on to our next question, Jean Cherdak. If you would read our next question, please. You're muted.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Amelia. What is your position on infill zoning, and has it achieved its pre-stated goals?
Thank you very much. Okay, so this question will be answered in the following order, beginning with Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, and Marissa Elkins. So Jamila Gore, you have 60 seconds. And we're gonna, if you just hold 1 sec, we're gonna start that clock. There we go.
I think that infill zoning can be good, but it can also not be so great if there's not really affordable housing in that area. I think that it can cause problems. It's made as a good solution to affordable housing, but if there's not affordable housing in the infill, then it's not working for affordable housing. So I don't know a ton about infill zoning. I know that the zoning laws will help with affordable housing, but only if the housing surrounding it is affordable. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Our next respondent is Michael Quinlan.
Thank you. Infill zoning has been an interesting thing to learn about in my term on the council here. We've addressed a few things. We've worked on some things, and it's taken a lot of public comment here because exactly what Jamila just said. You've got situations where there is space for infill, but the infill that's coming in a lot of cases is expensive housing. And as a result, it's not necessarily achieving its primary goal initially. However, it should create greater housing stock in the community. It should give us more opportunity to do that, and eventually some relief to our houseless population and people with low income. So that said, I'm a supporter of infill zoning. I think it's a good concept, and again, just about making it as effective as possible.
David Murphy, 60 seconds.
Well, I was on the council when we enacted the current version of infill zoning, and all the public comment about it at the time was wonderful. Everybody thought it was a great idea. Create more housing in the inner part of the city where it's walkable, where there are already utilities. We'll be able to stop sprawl because we'll be putting new homes where there are facilities and transportation to support them. The problem is we created these new lots, but they're market rate lots. And so the houses that are built on them are built in most cases by speculators for profit. So while it's an infill lot and it's in a nice setting, we're getting $500,000 and $600,000 houses put on these lots, because unfortunately that's the economic reality of having somebody privately build a house for speculation. And I don't think that ever came up in the original conversation. But when you want private capital to create housing, private capital is going to create the kind of housing that's profitable for it. And that's what we're seeing.
Thank you very much. Marissa Elkins, 60 seconds.
Yes, I am. Zoning as a member of the planning board is a thing that I'm very interested in, and I think it actually is one of the few mechanisms that we have robust ability to tap to meet city goals. So first of all, there's a housing segment shortage at every segment of the market. Yes, we need affordable housing, but we need attainable housing too. Pretty much everybody who's looking here to buy or to move is having trouble finding things that meet their need if they're not already here. Housing responds to supply and demand, just like anything else. So yes, it is the case that construction is expensive right now. It's more expensive than maybe it's ever been, but we get more houses by building more houses. And I also think that infill development is key, is the key way that we get more housing stock while also meeting our resilience goals. It's incredibly important to build on existing infrastructure. I understand where it comes from to say that this is all about speculators, but I have also seen a great deal of intergenerational development. Two-family homes and accessory units being built because of the needs of an aging family member or a child with disability. That's kind of thing meets the current needs and also brings more housing stock. And infill development really taps into and creates more opportunities.
Thank you very much. All right, our next question will be read by Dan Crowley.
What is your position on defunding the police department?
Very good. This question will be answered in the following order: Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, and David Murphy. Marissa Elkins, 60 seconds, please. You're muted.
So I think the answer to that question really falls on getting the Department of Community Care up and running as quickly as possible. The fact of the matter is that we live in a very safe community, and we have a great deal of room here to tap into all of the energy around police reform and about looking at how we keep public health and safety and meet those needs in a different way. So I think it's going to be very important to get the Department of Community Care up and running and for them to work collaboratively with the police department. Chief Casper has initiated good measures, and I support them. And I want to see her supported within her ranks and to be supported and work collaboratively with the Department of Community Care.
Thank you very much. Jamila Gore, 60 seconds.
I think we've seen over the past, year and a half that our current way of policing people in this country is not sustainable anymore. And I think that we need in our community to fully fund the Department of Community Care in a way that it can get started on the right foot and not get started at a disadvantage. And I think our last budget that only gave the Department of Community Care half of what was cut from the police budget was not acceptable. I think that we need to go into this new department, funding it like like the police department and giving it its equal due to give the community what we need right now, which is not more traditional policing. It's just not what Northampton needs. Like, we are a safe community. We don't have a lot of crime, but we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jamila. Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds.
Thank you. You know, I've been proud to be a part of this conversation from my work on the council to being a council appointee to the Policing Review Commission, where I've said countless times, I've learned so much about Northampton's opportunities for emergency response, what works and what doesn't. I've been able to really spend, almost countless hours discussing and reading and learning about more innovative emergency response. And I think as a council and as a municipality, we can explore this and we can continue to have this discussion. Again, I've been really honored to be a part of it, and I'd like to continue to be a part of it because I think there's plenty of opportunity to explore this and to continue, items like the Department of Community Care. It's essential for our city to head in this direction, and it's going to give us the opportunity to be a model for other communities for how to compassionately care for people in a crisis. That said, whatever our emergency response is, whether it's duties of the police, duties of the Department of Community Care, duties of fire rescue, I believe we have to fully fund every single bit of it.
Thank you very much. Our last respondent is David Murphy, and you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I think it was a horrendous mistake on the part of the city council to cut the police budget. As I mentioned, for 8 years, I chaired the finance committee. I know how tight the budgets are for all the departments. I can understand the city council wanting to come up with other options like the Department of Community Care, but the answer or way to arrive at that was not to cut the police budget. It was demoralizing to that department that their elected public officials didn't support them. And I think it's the kind of mistake that gets made when you change 5 city councilors at the same time. The majority of the council has no experience on the job. They've been there less than 6 months, and they cut over $800,000 from the police budget. It was just a mindless thing to do. And there was also a lack of leadership on the part of the senior, more experienced councilors not to put their foot down and say, we can't do this. So I was very disappointed by it. I do support the approach of community care. I think the police are willing to work with them and the outreach they'll provide. But it was wrong to cut the police budget then, and it still is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to our next question. Jean Churdek.
Okay. The Northampton Public Schools are funded with approximately half of our city budget. Although the school committee is elected to represent citizens with regard to public schools, it does not have control over that budget. Explain how you will view your role as city councilor at large in advocating for quality education in Northampton.
Thank you. And this question will be answered in the following order: David Murphy, Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, and if at any point one of you wants to have the question read again, I'm sure Jean would provide us with another reading. So beginning then with David Murphy, 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. Well, the amount of money that gets sent to the school department, and it's actually over 50% of the budget, is determined by the mayor when the mayor submits the budget. The city council can only cut that amount. And I'm glad to say I don't think the city council's ever cut the mayor's allocation to the school department. But the city council doesn't decide how much money goes there. The city council simply votes to approve the mayor's budget. That lump sum amount goes to the school committee, and they're the ones that decide how to spend it on a line item basis. So there's very little a sitting city councilor can do to increase the amount of money that goes to the schools, except lobby the mayor to increase that amount of money. Mayor submits the budget, we approve it. We cut it, we can't add to it. Now, I know whichever candidate becomes mayor, they strongly support the school department and the school department funding. But the way the charter works, the way city government works, it is not up to us how much money to send to the school department. It's up to the mayor when formulating the budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Marissa Elkins, you are the next respondent and you have 60 seconds.
So regarding to school funding, that is a much more holistic thing, because as David says, so much more is in control, is controlled by the budget that is sent over by the mayor. What I will say is that I would support, and I was chair and ran the campaign for the override, 2.5 proposition override. And that was part of a responsible long-term plan to meet Northampton's priorities over a span of years, while also protecting our credit rating and our ability to prioritize. And schools, as reflected by its percentage of the budget, is the hugest part of our priorities. So I think the role as city councilor is to, yes, look over that budget carefully and take that role very seriously. But I also think it involves being part of the long range plan and supporting the fiscal health of the city by supporting efforts like override when that's what's necessary, and supporting those efforts.
Thank you very much for your response. Much appreciated. All right, our next respondent is Jamila Gore. You have 60 seconds. Jamila?
Yes,
Great.
I think that our teachers need to be supported, and I know our teachers weren't happy a few years ago when they came and they protested at City Hall about getting lower wages than teachers in other communities. And I was in hopes that the override would help increase the wages of the teachers, and I think they came to a good decision around that. But I would fully support the mayor supporting the schools fully, and also like take the ear of the mayor and get the mayor to put the budget priorities toward education as much as possible. And, you know, there can be a dialogue between the council and the school committee also that can, you know, we have influence over the school committee as well if we have an open dialogue with them about it. So the school committee, the mayor, and the council all need to work together to fund education in Northampton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds.
Thank you. I think it's important to recognize, Mr. Murphy points out that the city council can't add money to any line in the budget. And I think that's important to comprehend. And I think it's also important to comprehend where Northampton sits in terms of state funding. We don't receive a fair share, right? We're a community that has good taxes, and as a result, the state leaves us to our own devices in a lot of ways. As a result, I think it's important, that we advocate at all times with our state for full funding of our school system. School of choice, charter schools really hurt the Northampton public schools specifically. So I think it's important that we understand that our school department is very well operated. It does a good job. I'm a proud alum. As I mentioned, my wife is also a proud alum. We moved back to Northampton so that our children will go to school here. We feel strongly about this school system. So I think for advocacy and support are the best things a counselor can do to try to encourage the state government to fund this school department properly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michael Quinlan. Oh, sorry. All right, on to our next question. Dan Crowley, if you would give us one more.
Thank you.
Our next question.
What departments in city government do you see as lacking most in resources to effectively do its job? With some examples, if you can, and where would you prioritize providing more resources in city government?
Thank you. And this question will be answered in the following order: Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore. So beginning with you, Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. I think, one of the discussions that we've had repeatedly, whether it was due to COVID or now coming out of COVID and trying to recover, is our DPW. DPW right now is down a number of people and lacks not necessarily fiscal resources, but lacks human resources, just having people to do the work that the DPW does to manage our city every day. So that's something that I think is very important, is that we comprehend that at the beginning of the pandemic, there were some positions that the mayor chose to lay off. We've now come back to a position where we can have a full staff there, but they're having trouble hiring people. So I don't know if that's a resource that's a resource shortage that's causing people not to take the jobs back, or what it is exactly. But that's a situation where Northampton absolutely needs people to work, and we need to be able to encourage that through that department.
David Murphy, you have
Well,
60 seconds.
I agree with Councilor Quinlan. Yeah, DPW is the one that gets shortchanged all the time. And a lot of the things they have to do are really big ticket items. Right now we're having to completely redo our sewage treatment plant. We're under order by the EPA to deal with our flood control system and our stormwater system. These are $30 million things that we have to deal with, and we have to find a way to bond them and go into debt, and it's all kinds of things there. The other thing people have to remember is with the constraints of Proposition 2.5, the growth of the levy is strongly controlled without an override. People don't like overrides, but really it's the only way municipal government can raise additional funds. One of the reasons the state doesn't give us a lot of aid is that we could raise our tax rate 30% if we chose to override to get the money from that resource. So when they look at us, we're not up against our levy ceiling. We got room to grow our levy. It's a matter of, are we willing to raise taxes on our residents? Will they vote to support it?
Thank you very much. Next respondent, Marissa Elkins. You have 60 seconds, please.
So I also agree that DPW is a huge source of concern, and with the labor shortage that everybody is experiencing across public and private. I also want to briefly touch, though, on the Department of Community Care. It is correct that that folks are looking to see that is fully funded and implemented. One thing, though, that I think is really important is that there's a great deal of energy that kind of department doesn't have to be funded entirely from our own pocket, that there's great energy and resources across the country for innovative solutions like that. And I would encourage the mayor, work with the next mayor, and to tap those resources. So I feel like that's a priority that we've all voiced interest in, that isn't just limited to what is immediately in our coffers, that there's going to be ways to expand how the city can meet that need. And so I would very interested to see how that develops.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jamila Gore.
As you can imagine, I'm very excited about fully funding the Department of Community Care. I think it could be a really innovative and imaginative new department in our city. I think it could help with our houselessness issue. It could help with mental health issues, with drug addiction issues. And I think it's a real people-centered department and a safety-centered department. And I think that's what could bring our community together and make it a safer place and a nicer place for people to be. And I would love to see that get funded in any way possible, with the COVID money, with money from grants, any kind of way that it could get fully funded so we can hire really good people and give them a good living wage, and a wage that appreciates their labor would be great. And that's what I really am looking forward to if I am elected on council, is working to get that Department of Community Care up and running and set on its way.
Thank you. Jean Sherdak, will you read our next question, please?
Okay. How should Northampton plan for electric vehicle-based transportation by 2030? What is your timeline for all electric school buses and for a municipal fleet of electric cars and trucks?
Very good. So the order of responses to this question: Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, Marissa Elkins. Jamila Gore, pardon me.
I think that it's a good start to shoot for 2034 for electric vehicles. I think that, that's one of the ways that we can address climate change immediately, is have electric vehicles in the municipal government. I do think that we have to think about where we're going to get the funding for these vehicles and how we're going to prioritize that funding. And if we're going to prioritize that over other things that the city may need. And that's going to be something that needs to be deliberated and discussed among the council, how we're going to pay for these vehicles and get them off and running on the road. But I do think it's a very good idea for the climate emergency that we're in to prioritize getting electric vehicles for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Michael Quinlan, you have our next response and you have 60 seconds, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The city fleet of vehicles has already started moving towards electric, and I think that's been a tremendous investment. We see, and I know that there's been discussions in the school committee about electric school buses as well. Just here in Ward 1, a neighbor of mine has battery powered home, right? Solar energy that feeds his home and creates an opportunity for him to draw less electricity from the grid. And so I think electric vehicles are obviously the wave of the future. And I think, the other things that we can be doing is creating more charging stations in town. I think right on Main Street, they don't need to be hidden in a parking lot somewhere. We can make those more accessible. And in addition to that, I think, we can also make a priority to get more people to park in our parking garage, just to try to reduce emissions on cars that are not electric.
Thank you very much. David Murphy, you're our next respondent, and you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, I'm a big fan of electric vehicles. They're much simpler to build. They're much easier to maintain. I think that they're wonderful. But to set a date like 2034 is a little bit arbitrary until the market comes up with the vehicles we could actually use for some purposes. Electric fire trucks with the pumps they have to run, school buses with the loads they have to carry, DPW equipment. To just pick a date and say we're going to do it by then, we have to really wait for our manufacturing infrastructure to be able to come up with the vehicles we can do this with. To some extent, it's beyond our scope. I think it's a wonderful goal to have. And certainly for passenger transportation, I think it's an achievable goal. But for across the board vehicles for all of our departments, until that stuff actually exists and is getting made, I think it's unrealistic. And we can't forget, where's the electricity coming from? If it's coming from fossil fuels, it really doesn't get us anywhere. Doesn't mean we should not work at it, but we got to wait for the products to exist.
Very good. So our last respondent to this question is Marissa Elkins, and you have 60 seconds, please.
So I think that the eventual transition of the city fleet of all of its vehicles to all electric is a key goal in meeting the goals of the Northampton Climate Resilience and Regeneration Plan. And if anything, I think that we need to, wherever possible, beat that, which would have us at 20 net carbon neutral by 2030. And I think that we need to do more, and we need to do it faster. And transitioning to electric vehicles is a big part of that. As those vehicles become available and they need to be replaced, we need to always be looking to replace with electric. I also think in the private sector that we can do some things to encourage private developers to build charging into their site, charging stations into their site plans by incentivizing that through zonings and through various requirements, zoning requirements. And that's part of what is really within our control, our purview as City Council.
Thank you. Dan Crowley, with our next question, please.
Thank you. What are some specific ways the city can help local businesses recover from the pandemic?
Thank you. And the order of responses for this question will be Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, and David Murphy. And Marissa Elkins, we begin with you. 60 seconds.
I think there are a number of ways. I mean, obviously, there are a number of ways. There's a number of things that were put into place over the last summer that are very much hope that they stay with us, such as the outdoor dining and the Summer on Strong Avenue that we had. And this is, of course, around retail and around around a restaurant industry. I think the redesign of Main Street is going to be a huge part of the long-term plan of coming out of COVID and the pandemic. So I think really making it possible for business owners to have their businesses, to run their businesses for their patrons, to be able to get to where they need to go safely are all huge parts of what the city can be doing for small business owners, particularly in our multiple downtown areas of Florence and down Main Street downtown.
Thank you very much. Jamila Gore, our next respondent, you have 60 seconds.
I think that we need to incentivize more lower rents for owners, to incentivize them to lower their rents downtown so that we can have less empty storefronts downtown and bring newer businesses and newer business owners into our downtown and make the rents more affordable for business owners to take the burden off of them, because renting downtown is very expensive. On Main Street, on Pleasant, on King, even, you know, in Florence, we've lost a lot of businesses to East Hampton or Holyoke or other areas where the rent on the main streets or the main drag is cheaper. And I think that lifting that burden off people who want to own a business downtown would be very vital to revitalizing Main Street after this COVID recovery and getting, you know, our vibrant city back together again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds.
Thank you. I also think that the redesign of Main Street is essential, right? Creating, you know, an exciting, vibrant space that draws people here is really one very obvious way that we can encourage people to visit our downtown and patronize our businesses. I also think when we start to talk about you know, empty storefronts, and we start to talk about businesses that are closed, that we need to work with those owners, you know, to try some experimental things, to try some things like pop-up opportunities, where maybe someone moves in for just a week or 2 weeks to try something that's not been done there before, or maybe something that has been done there before, but not with the burden of a lease for long term. Just something where they can maybe be in there for a short time and give something to the town and create some excitement. I think that would be one great way that we could encourage people to visit our downtown.
Very good. And lastly, David Murphy, you have 60 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think the first thing the city can do is make a commitment to maintain a single tax rate, because by splitting the tax rate, it would be death to Northampton businesses. Also, remember, we talk about downtown, we talk about redoing Main Street. For the 2 years we're doing it, it's going to make it considerably worse for the Main Street buildings. You know, their parking is going to be intermittent. It's going to be dusty and dirty, and there's going to be equipment driving around. I think the city needs to look to come up with alternative parking locations that can replace the displaced spaces on Main Street. They're going to be taken out because of construction. And then the different businesses need different kind of help. We did really good with outdoor dining for the restaurants, but other businesses need other sort of support. So I think continuing with the single tax rate helps them all, because with triple net leases, that's paid by the individual people with the businesses, small businesses, many of them. And I think the rents are tempering a little bit because of the supply and demand. So I'd say control the tax rate and find alternatives.
Thank you very much for your response. Jean Cherdak, will you read our next question, please?
Sure. Another pretty long statement here. City councilors at large are elected to represent citizens from all parts of our city, including Florence and Leeds. Sometimes citizens in those areas feel their concerns are ignored and they are forgotten. Explain how you will reach out and actively involve all residents in our entire city, even though your own experience has been centered elsewhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, the offer stands to ask Jean for a reread if that's of interest to you. Order for this question will be David Murphy, Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore, and Michael Quinlan. David Murphy, beginning with you, 60 seconds, please.
Well, my interests aren't otherwhere. For 14 years, the ward I represented was Florence. So I'm a Florence guy. I own a building on Main Street in Florence. I grew up, went to the Florence Grammar School, which is on Pine Street in Florence. Went to middle school in Florence. I'm a Florence kind of guy. So looking at other parts of the community are commonplace for me. In fact, Monday, Florence Civic and Business met with the mayor on his monthly visit to Florence to talk about Florence issues. So, you know, for me, it's not an issue. My interests don't lie anywhere else. And, you know, having grown up here, the whole city as a whole, I know really, really well. You know, you name a street, I can tell you where it is, having been in the real estate business for 40 years. So looking holistically the entire city is not a problem for me at all. It's second nature, but especially Florence, because that's where I grew up. I'm really, really close to Florence and am invested there.
Thank you very much. The second respondent for this question will be Marissa Elkins. 60 seconds, please.
So first, I would be working to partner with the ward counselors, get to know each and every one of them, and to learn more about their individual wards, and go with them to meet with their constituents at the neighborhood level. I think it's also very important that as city councilor at large, you're in the best position, I think, to have a big picture. And to play a role in overseeing an equitable infrastructure investment to make sure that the needs of every part of the city are being met fairly and equitably. And then finally, I also would work to really tune into the public and private points of friction that you find. It's easy to look downtown and see what's a point of friction there, but I know, and I've learned that in Leeds, for instance, that there's a point of friction between private ownership of at the rivers. So I would look to really go to those neighborhoods and speak with them and work with their ward counselors to meet their needs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next respondent, Jamila Gore. You have 60 seconds, please.
Yes, I've lived in 5 of the 7 wards. I lived in Florence, and I really enjoyed my time there. I also have, relationships with the Ward 5 counselor, the Ward 6 counselor, the Ward 7 counselor, all Florence and Leeds area, and would be working with them if I'm chosen to be on the council to see what their constituents are concerned about. I just, went and took, I'm going to take a walking tour of Leeds. Even though I take the bus, I'm going to go out to Leeds and take a walking tour with a neighbor who lives out there. So I'm very interested in those areas because they too are a part of Northampton. And I think they need to be brought into all the conversations around the city, because even though they're smaller and they're a little further out, they're still very, very important to Northampton as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And for our last respondent, we have Michael Quinlan. And Michael, you have 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. I think it's important, that a city councilor at large have relationships across, not just across the city, but across all walks of life here. Whether it's engaging with the Leeds Civic Association to be, a partner to them and maybe get to participate in their meetings, or whether it be with a group of realtors or a group of business people. It's important that a councilor at large have that large view of the city. On a less formal level, I would just simply state that, having lived here for almost my entire life, I feel I have multi-generational connections to this city, whether it's, people that are friends of my parents, whether it's people that are friends of ours, parents of our children's friends, and our children and their friends as well. It's multi-generational connection to the city. So I don't feel intimidated by trying to connect with people in all corners of Northampton.
Very good. Thank you very much. And for our next question, I turn to Dan Crowley.
Thank you. Little somewhat similar vein, but a little different question. How would you, for someone new to city government, maybe tuning in for the first time tonight, how would you define the role of the at-large city councilor?
Very good. And this question will be answered in the following order: Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, Marissa Elkins, Jamila Gore. So beginning with you, Michael Quinlan, 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. The role of the at-large councilor equates to a senator, right? It's a larger group of responsibility. It's a larger group of constituents to be accountable to. So I think that's important. And as mentioned by some of my fellow candidates here tonight, this is big picture stuff. This is, a little less focus on potholes and a little more focus on what does the city want as a community. And specifically, I think about what is the council's role in the budgeting process, and the council's role in everything is really negotiating with the mayor and advising with the mayor on how the budget reflects the wants of this city. So I think that's really where the at-large councilor fits in, is on a larger scale, kind of understanding the entire city, but also portraying that knowledge to the mayor and other elected officials.
Thank you very much. David Murphy, same question?
I agree with Councilor Quinlan, but the at-large councilor is just not a resource to the citizens. We're a resource to the other councilors. the council is going to get less experience after this next election because two very senior at-large councilors are leaving. And there'll be some brand new councilors and some people that have only completed one term. So I would see the role of the at-large councilor being somebody that can counsel the new members how things work. How does the city finance? How does zoning work? What is your role? Because the council really only has authority when it acts as a group, and it's the at-large councilor's role to try and tutor the less experienced folks with, well, you might want to accomplish this goal, but this is a better way to do it because this way it'll get funded. It's relationship building with the newer councilors and trying to lead them in a direction where the goals of the city can actually be reached through the mechanisms that exist that we know about.
Thank you very much. Marissa Elkin, next respondent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think that the city councilor at large is a really exciting position, and it really is a place where at a policy level, the city's priorities at the city councilor at large has a responsibility to be keyed into the city's priorities at that big picture level. I think in terms of what the city councilor does is that it's important that city councilor at large understands the mechanisms of municipal government. Now, listen, I have not been on city council before, and I'd be new in that position, but I have served in city government. But I understand the mechanisms, and I'd be searching to use those mechanisms to their fullest potential to meet the city's urgent priorities. So I really do think that that's the role is bigger picture. It is looking at to fully push everything that we can do at the city level within municipal government to meet our needs.
Very good. Thank you very much. Jamila Gore.
I think that being an at-large city councilor is about negotiating with many different people, negotiating with your fellow councilors, negotiating with the mayor, negotiating with other city groups like commissions and committees that are appointed by the mayor, negotiating with the school committee, things like that, and really getting a big picture of all the things that are moving, all the moving parts that are going on in the city at once. It takes a lot of, community building, ways to talk to people and, really get people together on certain issues and behind certain issues. And I think it does also require the ability to kind of get the council together. Of course, the city council president is part of that, but also I think the at-large councilor can be another part of getting the council together on certain decisions.
Thank you very much. Jean Sherdak, if you would give us our next question.
Okay. Under the city charter revisions, the city clerk is now an appointed rather than elected position. In your opinion, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that change?
Very good. Order of respondents, Jamila Gore, Michael Quinlan, David Murphy, Marissa Elkins. Jamila Gore, beginning with you.
I think the disadvantage is that the community doesn't get to vote for the city clerk, and you don't get a community say in it. I think the advantage of being appointed is that maybe the mayor who appoints the city clerk has a better idea of what they're looking for in a city clerk. I do like the idea of electing a city clerk, but I also am not too estranged from the idea of having it appointed. And I think, I think our city clerk does a good job either way. I really honestly respect that position. And I think either way, it's an important position in our city.
Michael Quinlan, same question.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of positives. The only negative that I see to it is the diminishment of democracy. Taking a vote away from the people of Northampton is something that I would have a hard time agreeing with, except for the fact that when you're looking at the way the department heads report to the mayor and the accountability that exists there, and how the people of Northampton are served by the department heads and in the executive office, I think it's important to comprehend that the mayor should have some understanding there of who's working in that role. It's, I think we're in a very good position right now that recently our city clerk, who was elected by the people of Northampton, has now been appointed to the position. What a luxury for the mayor to have to appoint someone who has already been elected. That said, the other advantage that I think is important is this way we're not limited to people of Northampton running for a position. We can find the best candidate, even if that candidate lives in a surrounding community. So we're not limited at all in finding the best person for the job. Thank you.
Very good. Marissa Elkins.
Yeah, so the city clerk handles, a wide range of tasks, and they're very specific and they require a good deal of expertise. In my role as an attorney, I have this experience of working in courts where the elected the Superior Court clerks are elected. And I can tell you, Hampshire County has a wonderful clerk and Harry Jekanowski, and he is very knowledgeable about what he does. I can also tell you that I practice in other counties where there is less expertise that is specific to that role, and it makes it a little more difficult to practice in those courts. I will candidly say that I'm very much in favor where you have something that's very specific like this, that we have the ability to hire the people with the most expertise, and that the accountability comes from answering to the mayor, who in turn answers to the voters.
Thank you very much. So David Murphy, I believe, no, actually that can't be true. Yep, that's all four, right?
No.
Nope. Oh, in that case, David Murphy, over to you.
Thank you. I'm completely in support of an appointed clerk. Like the rest of the department heads, the mayor appoints, the city council approves. This is a very technical position. It's central to the function of the city, from elections to decisions of different boards and committees. It's more technical. It's not a political position. You have to really know what you're doing, and you have to perform your job well. So I'm very comfortable with it. It is possible to elect somebody to a position because they're politically popular, but totally incompetent at the job. And look at our own primary. 24% of the people voted. Sometimes the public just isn't interested and doesn't participate in the decision making. So yeah, for people like the collector and the assessor, the treasurer and the city clerk, I think appoint them. You get more professional people. You can go through an interview and qualify, and then get somebody who's really qualified to do the job. Not let it be as random as who might be politically popular at any given time.
Thank you. And I apologize for missing you the first time. So it's time for our closing statements. That means it's also time to thank Dan Crowley from the Daily Hampshire Gazette, and Jean Cherdak from the League of Women Voters League of Women Voters, and to thank them for their questions, which I think were excellent, and to thank our candidates for answering the questions and taking your time this evening. And now we're going to move to closing statements. It will be in the reverse order from opening statements. You each have 60 seconds to do that. And we will begin with David Murphy.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this process. And what's of concern to me is that there isn't enough exposure, and we don't get that much chance to do this with COVID in the course of this election. I'm also disappointed we don't get to ask questions of each other. They call these things debates, but they're really question and answer. I'd like us to be able to mix it up with each other a little bit. That's one of the things I've missed about the council, is debating with my colleagues the issues that are important to the city. That's one of the reasons I'm running again, is I'd like to get back into that room with a live council meeting and debate the issues that are important to the city. At-large councilors typically are ward councilors, typically ward councilors that have served multiple terms and bring knowledge and experience from in that room to that room. And with as many new councilors as we're going to have the next time around, I would highly encourage the voters of Northampton to return me to the council. You can't replace 14 years in that room. You can't replace 8 years chairing finance. We're going to have an even younger council than we had last time. I'd love to go back. Thank you.
Michael Quinlan.
Thank you very much. I've lived here in Northampton for almost my entire life. It's been a tremendous privilege to serve the people of Northampton and Ward 1 as a city councilor for this term. And I've learned an awful lot through the conversations that I've had. And that's really what the council job is. It's about having a series of conversations with people, learning what you can learn, and bringing what you've learned to the council, and then 9 people working together as a team to decide what are the best choices for Northampton. This is, I feel the knowledge that I've gained in this and keep gaining on a daily basis, coupled with my energy and love for Northampton, have prepared me for an at-large seat. And I'd be honored to have one of your 2 votes for city councilor at large. Thank you.
Jamila Gore.
Thank you so much for having us tonight and for your questions. They were very, thoughtful, and I would love your vote for Northampton City Council. I have a lot of good energy, a lot of new ideas to bring to our city, and I think that's what our city needs. And I think that, I've learned a lot from campaigning, from knocking on doors, from talking to residents of Northampton, and I resonate a lot with what people are talking about, what they want to see changed here, and what they want to see different. So I would hope that you would vote for me to help me and other people on the council bring about the changes that the city wants.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Marissa Elkins.
First of all, thank you to the Northampton League of Women Voters and the Gazette for hosting this forum. I didn't say at the outset, but I very much appreciate this opportunity. Listen, my service for the city and with government in general has been in different arenas, but I can tell the voters of the city, I'm going to be ready on day 1 if elected, because I understand, and I'll do all the work that needs to be done to understand how this government works, and to work with the next mayor creatively and boldly to use the tools that we have, zoning and budgeting, collaborating with regional partnerships to meet the needs and the priorities and the urgent needs that we have ahead of us. I'm prepared, I'm committed to this amazing city, and I'd be honored to have one of your 2 votes. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And again, thank you to the community, both for participating by getting in your questions ahead of time. And I hope you saw your question got asked. And thank you also to our candidates for their time and their energy and for taking time out of your lives to run for office. We are going to take a 15-minute break now, and the mayoral forum will begin promptly at 7:30, and I hope you'll be back.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Jamila, Marissa, David, see you
Hello, and welcome back to the 2020 candidate forums for the Northampton City Council at large and for mayor. This portion of the show is dedicated to the mayor's race. I just have a few quick reminders from our last forum, which is that candidates for this office will be allotted 2 minutes for an opening statement. They will have 60 seconds to answer questions and 60 seconds for a closing statement. If a candidate is mentioned by name by another candidate, then a 30-second rebuttal will be offered to both candidates. Please note that an official LWV timekeeper will provide information via a video clock. Candidates are requested to pace their responses accordingly. Candidates are requested to stay muted until they are called on. Reminders to unmute will be offered as necessary. Questions will be asked alternately by Dan Crowley from the Daily Hampshire Gazette and Jean Cherdak from the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to answer every question, the rotation in the order of their responses. So let's begin with opening statements. Gina Louise Shara, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Daily Hampshire Gazette for hosting this important forum. I believe that Northampton should be a place where anyone can make a life for themselves and comfortably retire. And I'm prepared to work with everyone to fulfill that vision. Our city is a special place because our residents step up to make it so. And I've long tried to do my part here. In 2007, the ceiling of the First Church's meeting house collapsed. This building is not only an historic treasure, it is a crucial downtown community space for everyone, regardless of religious belief. When my dear friend, Reverend Dr. Peter Ives, asked me to lead the $2 million capital campaign, I did everything I could. And today, First Churches is not only still standing and serving the community, but partnered with the city to be an emergency shelter last winter. In 2013, I ran for city council in Ward 4 because I thought it would be a way to contribute even more. I've done that work for 8 years, and now I'm an at-large councilor, the council president, finance committee chair, and I oversee our $120 million budget as that chair. I'm proud of the work I've done to expand affordable housing, support downtown business, combat wage theft, advance municipal broadband, fight for public school funding, address the climate crisis, and protect human rights and many other issues. Also in 2013, my oldest daughter began kindergarten at Bridge Street School, and I've been a proud public school parent ever since, with that daughter now at JFK and my younger one at Bridge Street. I know well the amazing work done by our teachers and staff, and I'm grateful to be part of our public school community. Since 2018, I've had the pleasure of working full-time as communications manager for Pathlight, which serves people with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and autism. Playing my part in helping people live lives of their choosing is a true privilege. I hope that as you learn about me, you'll see that I have a proven track record of working hard, listening to all voices, bringing people together, and getting things done. This is a pivotal time for Northampton with many big projects underway, and we need someone ready to lead. I care deeply about our community, and I put in the work and gained the needed experience to shoulder the significant responsibilities of the job. Thank you.
And thank you, much appreciated. Now for our second 2 minutes, we go to Mark Warner.
Okay, hi. You know, less than 3 months ago, right before announcing my bid for mayor, a woman at Paradise Copies took a look at the flyer I was about to print and said, "You want to run for mayor? Are you crazy?" You know, I understand her view. My run takes on an entrenched candidate anointed by the political insiders with a huge financial advantage. And should I win, well, I concede. A 7-hour public meeting is probably not everyone's idea of a good time. Still, I can say for 2 reasons that this run is legitimate and it's worth it. First, I'm not an out of nowhere candidate. I've served on 4 city committees, including the one in 2012 that brought the original 1883 city charter up to date. I ran the state Democratic platform hearing in Northampton in 2013, and have had dozens of my op-eds and letters published in the Daily Hampshire Gazette over the last 16 years. I think these op-eds have been persuasive on policing, marijuana, and even on the city council itself. Second, I believe the city does need a professional background and the common sense that I can bring to the mayor's office. Northampton is a $120 million a year operation. We have no hired city manager, and the city council doesn't run anything but its own meetings. It is thus the mayor who has the ultimate responsibility for paving the roads, funding essential services, negotiating with labor unions, procuring goods and services, finding a way to pay for retiree healthcare, supporting high educational standards, and ensuring a thriving downtown. And doing all of this while staying within our budget. These are not ideological litmus tests. They're nuts and bolts of basic good governance. I have the right skills to do this. Analyzing and recommending policies and management and budget plans for large public agencies is the work of my company, Warner Transportation Consulting Incorporated. It's all I've been doing professionally for the last 29 years. I have the good sense and integrity to act not in response to loudest voices or most powerful players, but in response to the most reasoned voices and most powerful arguments. It's with this background, this approach, that I offer you the best choice for a well-run city.
Thank you very much. I will now ask Jean Cherdak of the League of Women Voters to ask the first question among those submitted by members of the community.
Okay,
Jean.
thank you. Okay. The mayor of our city has many expectations to meet and many varied roles to fulfill. Tell us the 3 you believe are most important and why.
Thank you very much. So anybody who wants a question repeated should simply ask, and we'll have the question. Jean will, and Dan will, I'm sure, be happy to repeat them. In the meantime, Mark Warner, we begin this question with you. You have 60 seconds.
Okay. Well, the number one issue that we have to deal with is making sure our businesses are thriving, that our downtown is sustainable. It's taking a lot of hits these days. Obviously, COVID has been a problem. There's been a long-term issue for retail by competition with Amazon. We see their trucks all over town. And lately, there's an issue of panhandling, which has gotten worse, and homelessness affecting downtown. Look, we're a compassionate city, but we have to make sure we deal with it. And we also have to go and recognize that there are consequences of the downtown revisioning Main Street. Let's make sure we get that right. So I'd say that's the number one issue. We also have a long-term issue for our economic security in terms of making sure that we find somebody for the Coke plant and that we know what are the other tipping points for other businesses that may be considering leaving Northampton. Finally, we have a general issue of making sure we run our city efficiently. We're doing the right things and we're doing those things as efficiently as possible. This is the best way to make sure we stay within our budget. That's the way to make sure we're long-term sustainable.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Ms. Shah.
Yes, so the mayor is the chief executive for the city, the head of the executive branch. But, the mayor also works in cooperation with the legislative branch, which needs to approve funding for all items. And I would very much hope to have a very good working relationship with my colleagues on the city council. Importantly, the mayor is also the manager of our departments. We have excellent, well-run departments, and we have remarkable department heads. I would say that my management style is more of a collaborative style. I like to be part of a team. And I think that that's one of the most important jobs of the mayor is doing that teamwork with the department heads to find out what their needs are, make sure that they have the budgets that they need for their departments. And that also to make sure that we are meeting our goals that they have in those departments. Ultimately, the mayor is the final say on many decisions and needs to take responsibility for the decisions that they make. The mayor is also really a leader in terms of fulfilling our values and the main person who sets forth what that is.
Much appreciated.
Okay.
And for our next question, we go to Dan Crowley from the Daily Hampshire Gazette.
Thank you. It's great to be here and nice to see both mayoral candidates. My first question tonight is, what is the mayor's role in helping the city recover from the economic impacts of the COVID pandemic?
Ms. Shah, you have 60 seconds.
Sure. Well, one of the most important things I think that we're working on right now is our Main Street redesign. I think that will really help not just the downtown adapt to a changed retail economy, but will help us recover from the pandemic and would hope to be a real leader on that. I have actually been on the committee for this project for the last few months and am very interested in this project. I think it's a really important thing that we're doing and really maybe a once in 100-year opportunity for us. I think it's also important that we bring back our economic development director. That was lost during this tough budget year with COVID. And I think that that's something that can really help our businesses if we can bring that position back and really be forward thinking about economic development. And perhaps most importantly, I want to make sure that we bring municipal broadband to Northampton. That'll help established businesses stay current, but also is a very important economic development driver and incentive for new business.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me refer specifically to the issues of COVID. One of the things that we can be thankful for here in Northampton is that we had generally a very high compliance rate with wearing masks, and there's a high vaccine rate. And now the state has declared that Hampshire County is really at the lowest level of an ongoing risk. So I'm happy to see that. It was a setback, obviously, to those businesses that thought they finally had their breathing room in the summer to then discover that, okay, well, now we have to go back to some of the distancing and masks. So I think one of the big things is to make sure that we progress as a city in terms of ensuring our safety, public safety, in terms of the vaccines, and we have the measures to do that. The other thing, of course, is that as the $21 million in federal funds come in for recovery, this is money that can be used for these businesses directly. So we would be working with the Chamber of Commerce, we'd be working with the business groups, and we'd be working with various organizations in Hampshire County and regionally to make sure that we can ensure that those businesses are sustainable going forward.
Very good. Jean Sherdak, our next question, please.
In our city, the mayor also serves as chairperson of the school committee. Explain why you consider that to be an appropriate role for the mayor and describe how, in that role, the mayor can help ensure quality education for all our students.
Mr. Warner, we begin with you.
Sure, it is very appropriate for the mayor to be on this, to be in the school committee. It's $43 million. It's 50% almost of our regular operating budget, not including the enterprise funds. So yes, this is important. The mayor has to be there. Is one of the qualities that help our city go forward and thrive. It's what our public expects. Look, the mayor can also be just a background voice there and yield to the superintendent, yield to the school board, or the mayor can use his or her authority to go and try and, add a little bit of perspective and a little bit of good sense where needed. I think the mayor will help, obviously has to work with the city, with the school department to go and set the budget. But this issue of sense is important too. There are cases here where an extra voice of a sensible person can help to make sure that issues, so sometimes these ideological issues that show up, can be dealt with appropriately. We don't lose sight of the key thing of educating.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your response. Ms. Shara.
Thank you. I think it is appropriate. I also actually believe that it is state mandated that the mayor chairs the school committee. Public schools are a personal passion of mine. One of the things that I'm most excited about, if I'm privileged to be mayor, to be on the school committee, I believe that public schools are the most important service that a municipality provides. So I think it is very appropriate that the mayor is also on that committee. And, providing equal educational opportunities is not only our state constitutional mandate, but I believe it is a moral mandate of ours. I would hope as mayor to help steer the school committee and be, a good guide for them. I have a lot of experience having run city council meetings, and that's, an important role that I would like to play is help get that agenda in a way that feels manageable and that we can be a cohesive body that can work well together. I think that that's a skill set that I would really bring to that. And again, something that I'm incredibly excited to be a part of.
Very good. And if we could have our next question from Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you. What are the city's responsibilities in addressing the needs of the homeless or houseless population, and what solutions would you offer as mayor?
I'm sorry. Me,
no,
first,
quite
yeah.
right, Ms. Shara.
Thank you. Well, we know that we have a houseless population and that they're part of our community. This is not unique to Northampton. There's a housing crisis and a houselessness crisis throughout the country. The city is actually doing a lot right now around this. The resilience hub that we are in the process of creating, I think will be a very important and transformative thing for our houseless community. I think, and it came out of conversations directly with them. And I think we do have that responsibility to try and not only help meet their needs, but help make sure that they have a climate safe place to be. We've seen during COVID what happens when people don't have somewhere to be. And also that will help the other needs that we're feeling downtown, where people are feeling that there's too much stuff or garbage around. We want to make sure that people have a place to put their belongings. So I think that this is an important, the city is actually doing a lot of work around this right now, and that it is our responsibility to take some initiative with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, I mean, Northampton is a compassionate city, and this is one of the areas where we can show our compassion. However, it is also something where we have to be recognized two issues here. One is that homelessness is having an impact on our businesses. We have to be respectful of them as well. But we should use the Resiliency Hub. We should use the new Department of Community Cares, largely for outreach, recognizing what are the symptoms here that are creating this, or what are the underlying causes. Is it alcohol? Is it a drug addiction? Is it mental health? These are issues where we can go and have some outreach and find the things to do. The other one is we should recognize that everything has to be on the table. If the Hampshire County Sheriff's Office has a plan, we shouldn't just dismiss it because that represents a law enforcement issue. Look, this isn't an issue of criminalizing poverty or criminalizing homelessness, but it's an issue of saying, are there resources that this office can bring, that the sheriff's office, for example, or working with the police can bring, that would be suitable for dealing with this problem? And many of these people don't, they're having a very tough time. Let's see what we can do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jean Cherdak, next question, please.
Okay, the next part of this would be, how would you address concerns about panhandling downtown?
And Mark Warner, we start with you.
Sure. The concerns about panhandling are legitimate. Look, this is an issue to where, again, we are compassionate. We have to be respectful of people, but we also be respectful of our shop owners and the people who want to come to those shops and restaurants, the visitors of our arts venues. And all of these people are central to what makes our downtown thrive. It is our, this is our quality of life. This is our retail. This is our restaurants. And from the city's perspective, it is our employment. And from the city's perspective, it is also our hotels and meals tax and much of our commercial property tax. If we lose that because of panhandling, and the mayor's recent report on the panhandling study group was able to establish clearly through a variety of surveys that yes, this is having an adverse effect on people's willingness to come downtown. And if we lose this, we lose the funds that can help us deal with homelessness and the issues, of so much of these people who are down and out. So let's make sure we can know what we're doing. Again, not criminalizing just panhandling, but criminalizing issues that are crimes.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. Ms. Shara.
So I was, before being the at-large counselor, I was previously the Ward 4 counselor. So this is a conversation I've been having for many years. This is actually a decades-long debate. I've been involved in this discussion even before I was a counselor. We need to first recognize that there's a First Amendment right for people to ask for money, and we can't ban it. I hope that we have moved forward from that conversation in Northampton. We can't ban or restrict panhandling. We need to recognize that people have that same constitutional right to be on our streets. We live in a society where people are having difficulty finding steady work, but they're part of our city and part of our community. And I have great hope that the Resilience Hub will be a central place where people can access services and can start working on those issues, that there will be, within the Resilience Hub, there will be something about employment and helping people gain employment and helping them look for it, and that we can start meeting some of those needs with some of these innovative things that the city is doing.
Thank you.
Can I take 5 seconds? Take on from my next question?
What? When I've asked the next question, okay, you can decide how to answer it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Crowley, if you would please with our next question.
Thanks. Since the resilience hub's come up a couple times, I know we stick with that. Let's say you're at a party, you met somebody who knows nothing about the city of Northampton, and you happen to mention the city is building a resilience hub, and they ask, what's that? And what will it be used for? How would you answer them?
Ms. Shara, beginning with you.
Sure. So the Resilience Hub actually came out of discussions around the Mayor's Panhandling Working Group, discussions with actually our houseless community. And what they identified as one of their greatest need is a day center, someplace where they could be during the day, perhaps when the shelters are not open. We've seen during COVID what happens when people don't have somewhere to be during the day, like say libraries or cafes. So they identified this as a need, also as a place where they could do laundry, access services, have a safe place to keep their belongings. So primarily, this is going to be a day center for those people. It's also going to be a central place where they can access services. And we have a lead agency, Community Action, and other agencies are partnering so that it'll be a central place where people can learn about different services available to them. Additionally, it's called a resilience hub because it will be a location for during a climate crisis that can be quickly converted into a shelter. We've seen what happens when we have a crisis and we don't have enough shelter beds. So it will also serve that purpose.
Thank you. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that. I was wondering if Gina was going to bring up the idea of the climate change, because it was that second role of the Resiliency Hub as well, but there's not much more I can add to that one. So let me go back to just this one last piece. I'll use a few seconds on this. Look, of course, I'm not going to seek to trample on First Amendment rights. Of course, I understand that. But there are some actions of panhandling that is not the panhandling action itself, but of ancillary activities that are against ordinances or even state law, and they can be enforced. Smoking pot in public, blocking the sidewalk, larceny and theft, shouting your head off. These are things that there are measures that the city can take. And so I think that ultimately we have to be responsible, we have to be thoughtful, we have to be compassionate, but we also have to recognize that this is having an adverse effect on our businesses. And if there are laws to take, there are measures that we can take, but we have to put those on the table too. But Dan, I'm sorry, I didn't have much more to add about the Resiliency Hub. I think Gina did a good job of describing what it does.
Very good. Jean Churdek, would you please give us our next question?
Sure. The residential property tax in Northampton as in most of the US, is almost certainly regressive. Low-priced houses tend to pay higher taxes than expensive ones relative to their true value. What will you do to make the property tax in Northampton fair and equitable?
Beginning with you, Mr. Warner.
Sure. Well, one thing about it too is that the property tax is also based on an assessment. So the assessment value is something that as homes get assessed periodically, those that are higher value or much higher cost will get a disproportionate share of the total property tax levy. So there is that, but the other one too is just to run our city efficiently, so we keep our property taxes as well as our fees for water, sewer, and stormwater in a way that can be sure that it is affordable. Those are things that are user fees, so that's not an issue of being progressive. But the progressive tax is one that the property tax can only be done based on, looking at the value of the property and reassessing it regularly. One other piece too, the city does allow people who have met certain thresholds for economic, for means, for age and tenure in the city, to defer their tax payment until the time of sale of the property. So that's something that can help people to stay in their property if they have immediate problems with the property tax.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shara.
I'm sorry, Jean, you kind of froze in the beginning and I missed the beginning part of your question. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. The residential property tax in Northampton, as in most of the US, is almost certainly regressive. Low-priced houses tend to pay higher taxes than expensive ones relative to their true value. What will you do to make the property tax in Northampton fair and equitable?
Thank you for repeating that.
Sure.
Well, yes. I mean, we have a regressive tax system, unfortunately, across the board. That is something that I would very much like to see changed at the state level. It's not something we can do at the municipal level. We actually do in Northampton have a comparatively lower tax rate than many of our neighboring communities. So that's something that I think not a lot of people recognize, and is something that when you're doing comparisons to other communities, you always have to need to do an apples to apples comparison, but that's an important thing to keep in mind. As Mr. Warner had said, there are particularly for some of our older adults, we have possibilities of some abatements and deferments for one's taxes. That is something else that I have found not many people know about. And during the course of this campaign, I've actually helped quite a few people learn about those. So, I always encourage people to explore options and to contact the city and make sure that all the possibilities that are available to you. And as mayor, I would, go after any other of those possibilities.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crowley, next question, please.
Thank you. The city has committed to becoming a net carbon neutral city by 2050. Given the urgency of the climate crisis, many people advocate moving that deadline up to 2030. Would you agree? And if so, what is the single most important action the city should take to realize that goal?
Ms. Shara.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm really proud to have been endorsed by the Environmental League of Massachusetts. And, I'm glad that they recognize my record, both on the council and my commitment, if I'm mayor, to center the climate crisis in all of our city decision-making and our policies. One of my top priorities as mayor would be to work to achieve the city's carbon neutrality goals ahead of schedule. I also would like us to see us move to answer your question. So, the city has committed to be carbon neutral, so all municipal buildings and operations carbon neutral by 2030, but the city as a whole by 2050, which is what a lot of other communities have made that same commitment. I think that plan is strong, but not enough. I also like to see us not just move more quickly, but to move, instead of just carbon neutral, to renewable energy. And but it's very important that we don't leave our lower and fixed income residents behind. So I would like to see us move faster, but we need to pursue every option and program to help all residents be able to achieve those goals.
Thank you for your response. Much appreciated. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, I agree. The climate crisis is in fact a crisis. If we're not going to have great misery, we owe it to everybody to go and push up this timeline wherever possible. One thing that I would do is I would publicize where we are today and where we want to go and make it crazy public. Put it up on a giant billboard on the side of City Hall or some other big building so we can see this is where we are, this is where we want to go, and measure it right and do the measurements regularly to see the progress we're making. Do it as a challenge to the cities, other cities and towns in the Pioneer Valley. Are we going to let Amherst really get ahead of us? No way. Come on, we can be a booster. We can encourage those people with the means to make their investments into, getting on solar power, onto the heat pump system for geothermal, going to an electric car, and the city will set an example in terms of its measures to make its buildings and vehicles carbon neutral before the 2030 deadline.
Very good. Thank you very much for your response. Our next question will come from Jean Cherdak.
Several years ago, Northampton closed its landfill on Glendale Road. However, the problem of responsible trash removal is ever present. How do you plan to proactively anticipate the city's needs and plan to deal with the trash that is generated locally, particularly as disposal sites become less available and farther away?
Mr. Warner.
Yeah, actually, that's an old topic there. And I think the Glendale Road closure was being done a little bit for reasons that weren't all realistic. The concern about the Barnes Aquifer in East Hampton were not something that the Department of Environmental Protection ever recognized. And I think maybe it was something that we should not have done. As it is, what's happened to our garbage? A lot of it is being incinerated. A lot of it's being trucked over 200 miles to Seneca Falls, New York. This cannot be environmentally sustainable. This is not the goal. So I think I'm not saying we should need to reopen the Glendale landfill, but it is something that is an action that maybe was that really the best thing to do. Look, we have to go and do more recycling, whatever it takes to go and cut the stream, and, we'll have to deal with it. But part of it is also going to be done through market mechanisms if needed to make people change their behavior that way. I don't think it's going to be done through mandates.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. Ms. Shara, same question.
Well, not only can we not reopen the landfill, we can't. It is now the site of a massive solar array, which is, I think, a wonderful use of that space and a great kind of place to put solar. That's exactly where we should be putting solar. But, I do think that there's something wrong about the fact that now our garbage is carted away, out of sight, out of mind, and is impacting another community. I don't know exactly how we could solve that other than to help change people's behaviors and try and reduce our waste. I want us to have, my family compost. I'd like us to look at municipal composting and have that be something that more people do. I'd like us to explore all options for putting less into the waste stream. Of course, we're doing a lot of work around recycling. We recently passed a plastics ordinance. And so we are going to be reducing the plastic that we're putting into the stream, but
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. And for our next question, Mr. Crowley.
Uh-oh.
Do you support defunding the police department?
Very good. Yes, Ms. Shara, your first question.
Yes. So, first of all, two massive events happened in 2020 before the FY 2021 vote on the budget, where there was a cut in the police department, an unprecedented pandemic and an economic lockdown. And there were also unprecedented national mass protests against police brutality in the wake of the brutal murder of George Floyd. In that budget, nearly every city department had to absorb emergency cuts with revenue down, and we asked the police department to make a cut. A cut I also felt showed that we were serious about meeting that moment to rethink public safety. And amidst those meetings, Mayor Narkowitz and I created the mission for the Northampton Policing Review Commission, which was approved by the council. So I want to explain what was the context of the cut that happened then. Since that, this current year, we did not make a further cut to the police department. I would not be in favor of further cutting them unless we clearly show that there are less services being delivered and that there is excess in that department, but I think it should be funded to provide the services that are needed.
Mr. Warner.
Yeah, sure. No, I wouldn't support cutting the police budget or defunding the police. Look, the response to George Floyd's murder and the Black Lives Matter movement was to ensure that we have a reformed police department, and that we don't have, we understand the rules for potentially deadly force. We track bad officers. We discipline them as needed. We look for alternatives for mental health calls and things that maybe don't require a police response. But the idea of cutting the budget at a single city council meeting was a mistake. It is not progressive. It gives progressives actually a bad name to do that. Even Amherst recognized, no, this is kind of nuts. And going forward, we shouldn't do it either. Look, the city of Northampton Police Department isn't a big budget buster. It's 5.1%. That's it. 20 years ago or 10 years ago, it was 5.6%. It's pretty much the only department that dropped in terms of percent, but in terms of a number below the rate of inflation during all that time. We're doing pretty well. It does need to be cut further. If it does, let's figure it out.
Thank you.
May I rebut something, please?
So
There's a reference to a vote that I took that was just made.
Yep, hold on. So that means 30 minutes for each of you and
30 seconds, I think.
Sorry, 30 minutes. Ouch. Sure, you go ahead and then I'll give Mr. Warner 30 seconds as well.
Okay, thank you for that time. I want to correct a mischaracterization that the vote to reduce the police budget happened quickly and in one meeting that I've now heard Mr. Warner repeat multiple times. Clearly, he wasn't involved, wasn't watching or closely following the situation, or even has gone back to read those minutes. Anyone who's there can tell you it was neither quick nor one meeting. There was a budget hearing on June 3rd, another one on June 4th. The vote on the budget continued to a special meeting on June 10th, and with the first vote and a second vote of the budget on June 18th. It was days, hours, and hours into the wee hours of testimony and discussion.
Warner.
Yeah, Gina, the reason why those meetings were so long is because they went on forever with public comment. You were letting everybody come in there, and most of the people were from out of town. A lot of people within the city felt intimidated for speaking up. Look, I'm maybe going exaggerating the single meeting there, but it was done without a thoughtful assessment about what is the consequence for this cut. And Jody Casper, the police chief this year, was furious with you, and rightly so. All the goals we had for greater diversity, for economic, environmental sustainability were lost because of those actions. We were still stuck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I speak to Chief Casper regularly, and I wouldn't say that she's—
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm really not. Thanks. Okay, we do have other questions, and you are always welcome to answer your questions any way you want. Okay, but our next question will come from Jean Turdak.
Please describe one specific new or creative stratagem you'll use to bring one tax-paying business or retail store to the city.
Very good. And we begin those answers with Mr. Warner.
Well, I think showing up that we care. That we are a city that is committed to making sure that we have a sustainable city, that we that we are going to go and recognize that we are not going to go and push people out because our building rules and our building inspection, our licensing system is antiquated or isn't responding quickly enough or isn't applying rules that are done fairly. That we have to make overtures to the Chamber of Commerce, to other organizations. Look, right now, what is the big thing we're bringing into the city? Marijuana businesses. We've signed 28 host agreements, so we're pretty good at those. Although so far, none of those actual cultivation businesses have actually opened yet. By the way, one of the things that I did was I got that referendum, or I got that measure to go and put in an odor abatement in all of those facilities. So I think there are some measures we can do in just terms of making sure that people know we are an inviting city and we're good for business.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shara.
I would like to encourage more pop-up shops, but I think one of the most important things that we can do, and I'm not going to say that it's unique because other communities are doing this as well, is to bring municipal broadband to Northampton. I think that it's really crucial for economic development, as of course, as well as for our residents. I think it'll be really helpful for attracting helpful for our current businesses, but also be attractive for those deciding to start new businesses. I actually just spoke to someone recently who has a restaurant that he's beginning in another community. I won't say which one. And although you might be able to guess it by this, one of the main reasons that he was attracted to the community he's founding his restaurant in is because they have municipal broadband for their businesses. And that he thought was really important for what he needed to do. So I think that that's a really key thing that we can do as an economic driver to bring new businesses here.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right. So for our next question, Mr. Crowley, if you would.
Thank you. Let's see. What qualifications make you a better candidate for mayor?
Ms. Shar, beginning with you.
Sure. Well, I've been honored to serve on the city council for 8 years. I have extensive municipal experience as I've gone through. I've been a ward councilor, an at-large councilor. I've sat on many of the city's committees. I've held many leadership roles. I currently chair the finance committee, and I'm the council president, and I was previously the vice president. I have extensive management experience in the political sector, the academic sector, nonprofit, and most importantly, the municipal sector. I am committed to this work and believe deeply in public service and in supporting my community. And I have a real depth of understanding about our municipal government and what matters to the people of Northampton. I believe that this is a truly pivotal time for Northampton, that I'm prepared for this moment. There are huge, challenging things awaiting the next mayor, and they need to be ready on January 4th, 2021. We don't have time to kind of get your sea legs or build up the kind of relationships and that I have over these years that I've been. So, when I think about my top priorities on day one, they're all issues that I've been involved in and believe in fully. I need an experience later, and I want to see it through.
Mr. Warner.
Sure. Let me give you a few of them. Professional experience, integrity, fairness, common sense. These are a few things that I can bring to the city. In professional experience, look, I've had my business for 29 years working with large public agencies around the country internationally. I've had over 50 contracts from $10,000 to $265,000. And all of those projects were delivered on time, on budget, recognizing the stakes involved there, all the stakeholder interests in making and crafting policies and budgets and management decisions and organizational audits. I've been there at the bargaining table with all these transit agencies around the country. I've been there down in the weeds. I've been there in the public meetings. I've been able to convey this, my findings at board meetings all over the country and on the media. I can present this professionally. I was an arbitrator. I have a master's of public policy in management. My arbitration was expired with the American Arbitration Association, trained as a mediator. These are all tools here that apply in city government, and this is what I bring.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Shara.
Oh, I think I answered already.
Oh, shoot. All right. So then it's time for our next question, Mr. Crowley.
I think is it my turn or your turn?
I think I asked the last question.
Yeah, I think it's the league's turn.
Oh, goodness gracious. I must have skipped a column. Would you please?
Okay. Sure. This one's on affordable housing. There appears to be consensus in the community of the need for increased affordable housing. However, the designation of affordable often is applied to housing that is out of the range even for middle-class residents who work in the city. Do you view this as a problem? How would you address it?
Mr. Warner.
Sure. I mean, affordable housing is a state designation, and it's based on a factor of the median household income in the community. So yeah, that may be a problem there, and there are some people who will be priced out by that too. I think it's also important to recognize, and there is also low-income housing and Section 8 housing, which is different from affordable. The city is meeting its goals in terms of affordable, and this is something that gives us leverage with other developers too. So we're meeting our goals in terms of our state requirements, and that's good. I'm sure we should do better. Look, I think we have to go and make sure that we have housing at all price points, not just affordable housing or low-income housing or high-income housing. Let's also make sure we have some moderate housing too close to downtown. That is not all that available. But mostly it's important to make sure that our houses remain affordable for the people who are already in Northampton. And part of the way we can do that is make sure that we are providing government services efficiently, so we don't have to keep coming hat in hand back for more Prop 2.5 increases.
Ms. Shara.
Yes, we are meeting our requirements by the state, that's true. But of course, it doesn't even come close to touching the need, although we have been creating more affordable housing than other neighboring areas. But, and I'm very proud that I've always supported all the affordable housing projects and opportunities that have come through the city council. It's one of the most gratifying things, having served on the city for so long, is having been involved with a project from the very start to finish, like the lumberyard project on Pleasant Street, which is family affordable housing, which is so desperately needed. I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing around zoning that will help create more opportunities. But so the city we are not a developer, we don't create housing, but what we can do is leverage some of our CPA funds and create opportunities for creating affordable housing and working with those places that build actual affordable housing. So I would aggressively pursue all of those opportunities and try and leverage what we can.
Thank you. Thank you
as much as possible.
All right, Mr. Crowley, if you would please.
Thank you. In the present mayoral administration, many department heads direct inquiries from the press to the mayor's office rather than answer them directly. As the city's next mayor, would you allow department heads to field questions from the press about issues like public works and public health, for example? In other words, what kind of approach would you adopt for press accessibility to city government?
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Ms. Shara?
That's a very good question. I actually didn't know that. And I think what I would do is talk to my department heads and see what they're comfortable with. I don't know if that is something that's been dictated by the current mayor, or if that's something that the department heads are more comfortable having that go through the chief executive. So I would have a conversation with them. I certainly, I think our department heads are remarkable. They are remarkable professionals, and they are the true experts for their departments. So I would certainly be comfortable having them speak directly to the press. But I would want to, work within how they want to function in those jobs and provide them any support that they may be looking for. But I would have no problem having them talk directly to the press if that's what they'd like.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Mr. Warner.
Yeah, I think Gina Louise had a perfect answer there. I too wasn't aware this was an issue. Not surprised to hear there was a reporter from the Daily Hampshire Gazette that would bring that one up. But of course, these are people who are professionals. They know their field. I think they are worthy of that professional respect. And part of that should be the mayor's comfort in letting them go and speak to the press on those subjects of which they are experts. So I'm not really sure I understand the reason for that either, but I think Gina Louise has brought up a good point. Let me go check with them to see if that's something that they're comfortable with or not comfortable with, and then go forward from there.
Very good. Thank you very much. And for our next question, Ms. Turdak, would you provide us with a question?
Citizens have had many opportunities to weigh in on the proposals for the redesign of Main Street. At some point, the mayor must take leadership of this process. How would you proceed?
And if you'll hold on just a minute, I've lost my timekeeper and
Oh,
I'm
no.
going to rectify that by finding a clock.
Here she comes. She's coming back.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. So,
Oh, no, she's not.
okay,
Nope.
that's all right. I'm have iPhone will time. You won't be able to see, but you guys are both pretty good with 60 seconds. And we will begin with you, Mr. Warner.
I've already forgotten the question. What? Oh, Main Street redesign, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, the Main Street redesign. Ultimately, somebody has to manage, and somebody has to go and make a decision on this. The input has been valuable, but one piece is still missing from the downtown redesign that I would absolutely insist on, and that is a comprehensive transportation analysis. We need to understand what are the impacts on shopper and diner accessibility and visitor accessibility to downtown. And we need to understand how the constraining of traffic lanes on Main Street will affect throughput on Main Street and the traffic delays that are going to come as people shift over to Cons and Pleasant and Gothic and Masonic. So this is something that the city has written in the plan. Go to the second to last page of that big PowerPoint, which is really an excellent PowerPoint, by the way. But it says the city will do this for the final candidate options. I'm still waiting. And I feel that if we go forward with the design without doing that, we may be giving ourselves a problem in our downtown, a problem that we will regret later on.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ms. Shara.
So I think we're actually pretty close on a design. You know, I think a design had been chosen and then it's now been worked and massaged a bit. We're in another series of meetings. Unfortunately, one of them was tonight, so I wasn't able to attend. But tool design has been working with a lot of the input and has been making some changes. And I think that there's some really good compromises that are happening. You know, we're still having this conversation about angled versus parallel parking. And I have been advocating that we do away with most of the angled parking, although I've been listening to the people who have disabilities and who have mobility issues. And you know, I think that we can come to some sort of compromise where we gain as much of that space back for people while still making sure that they are comfortable and able to park. But again, this project is about safety primarily, first and foremost. And so we want to make the choices that are best for safety. And I do think that parallel is safer than pulling out of an angled parking. But I think we're very close on this and we'll get there.
Thank you very much. All right. Next question, I believe, should be from the Gazette.
Who is your mentor or mentors? What did you learn from them, and how will that help you serve as mayor?
Ms. Shara.
Wow, what a good question. Well, you know, I have been incredibly lucky to serve with remarkable counselors and some who have served for many, many years on the council. So I have looked to them as important mentors, and they've really helped guide me and help me understand, you know, there's a really steep learning curve with any of this work. And I feel like with council, it took a while to sort of understand the processes, and it's also very cyclical work. So I looked to those folks that I've served with to really help me, help guide me with that. You know, they're just, our city is really filled with remarkable residents, as we all know, who have unbelievable expertise in their fields, incredible people with environmental expertise who I turn to regularly. And so, you know, I have a close group of people who I regularly confer with, who I would say are mentors and have helped guide me and have helped sort of make me the person I am who wants to do this.
Mr. Warner.
Sure. I mean, I guess I have two types of mentors. One of them is the professional people who I've worked with over the last 29 years. These are on my projects, but they have been my clients where I've seen the work that they've done. I've seen the management of Philip Washington at the Los Angeles Metro, and he's done a tremendous job. He's just been terrific. And this has been something which I view as being a sort of an example that I have sought to follow. Look at the quality of management. Then there are other agencies I work with where I think there's, as we say as consultants, there's room for improvement, you know, and this is but those guys, when you look at it, you think, yes, this is right. Look, the other big mentor I guess I've had that's been influential on me is my dad. You know, he was, I set up my own company. I got my doctorate from MIT. I figured, look, I've got this shiny degree here. Let me go out on my own. And after the first 5 years, I was thinking, yeah, maybe this isn't working. I can't get any contracts on my own. And my dad said, stick with it. And I think that was helpful advice. So I consider him a mentor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Cherdak, if you would provide our next question.
Imagine your 2023 budget. What would you highlight?
Thank you. Mr. Warner, if you would, please.
Well, 2023 is not that far. We do in 2023, we'll have, a lot of additional federal funds for the ARPA COVID relief coming into the city budget. So that is something that gives us opportunities to do a lot with. So the priorities would be consistent with those goals. And one of the things will be to make sure that the learning drawbacks that people have had where they've fallen behind because of COVID are things that we can help to deal with, help to mitigate. So additional aids in the elementary schools in particular for math, for reading, to help people catch up, for programs with the economic activity in the city, for dealing with our infrastructure. These are all things that are consistent with that COVID funds, and I think they will show up greatly in our 2023 budget. So those are key things. The other one is making sure we're doing the right things. Look, I'm going to start with the benchmarking, not just of how much we raise, but of what we're spending it on. Let's make sure we do that appropriately.
Ms. Shara.
So there's a difference, of course, between our general fund budget and the one-time funds that we're getting, such as ARPA funds. I think absolutely the most important thing that I would be highlighting in my first budget as mayor would be the Department of Community Care. We are funding and starting a new department. That's huge for the city. And so, when I think about how I would write my budget message, that would be a big chunk, is talking about what it took to get to that place where we figured out what the operational budget was for that department. We're currently interviewing for the implementation director for that department. And if I'm elected, I very much look forward to working with that person and helping them create that budget. There's not a lot of time to do it, and there's a lot of factors that need to be considered. But that will be one of the most, I think, has to be one of the most important highlights of the next budget, and something to really celebrate. And I hope that everyone in the city will be looking carefully at that.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley, can you provide us with another question?
Yes, I can. What will be the challenges and benefits of replacing a long-term mayor?
Thank you. Ms. Shara, if you would, please.
Sure. Well, the challenges are, I believe that our mayor has done some really remarkable things as mayor. He has been done really great things with our city's finances. We now have a AAA bond rating. So, those are big shoes to fill, although I think that he and the former finance director have really sort of set out a roadmap for how they did that. So, I think that it's a challenge to fill that role when someone has done it and done it well. Although, mayors, I always sort of say that mayors kind of have shelf lives. People sort of get used to you and then are ready to see change in the city. So I think that we are kind of at that point where I'm hearing that a lot, that, I think our current mayor is ready to move on, and that people are also interested in change and a new approach to certain things. And, I think that I certainly bring that approach. I have I appreciate him. I have a very different approach.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, I agree. I too want to go and give some praise to Mayor Narkowitz. I think he has served the city very well. I think the AAA bond rating does help. And I think the management people he's put in place in the city have generally been very good choices. I think there are also things where I think there's some room for improvement. I think the focus in so much of the city's benchmarking so far, the mayor's budget message, for example, has always been in terms of the revenue raised. But I think we also have to go and look at what are the services that other peer cities provide. Are we doing the right levels of service? Are we going and providing those things with the same inputs in terms of different staff in different classifications? These are things that I do with my clients all over the country, and there are types of things that I think would be appropriate to be done here. So look, yeah, there are big shoes to fill. but I think that I do have those skills to do it and would be able to likewise get the ground running.
Very good. For our next question, Ms. Cherdak, if you would help us out.
A mayor can expect to hear often from residents who are passionate about particular issues, but you would be elected to represent everyone in the city. Describe specific approaches you will use to ensure you reach out to and fairly represent less vocal constituents.
Mr. Warner.
Sure, that's a good one. And I think that has been an issue. Last year, there was an issue where people were showing up on Zoom at the city council meeting, Mary from Florence, and she was a blacked out screen and she only gave that name. But she was feeling left out here, that the council was not considering those voices too. Look, these other voices are critical to hear as well. Let's make sure that we get balance, that we hear from both sides of an issue. But I, as a mayor, would also go and hear from the experts involved, the people in the departments, the advisory commissions that understand the particular industry. That's why they're on those commissions, a particular field. And ultimately, I would have to go and make a decision that's not based on loud voices. I will hear them, but it doesn't mean that's what we have to follow. And I think this is what the people of Northampton would expect of our elected officials, that we go and we choose these decisions based not on loud voices, but on powerful arguments. And this is something that, that you would want to make sure that you do and you do fairly and in the best interest of a healthy Northampton.
Ms. Shara.
City decision-making needs public input. We need robust, respectful collaboration, and we also need to be driven by evidence and data. Full public input means hearing from all voices. It means not just having arguments and conversations on Facebook, but talking with people face-to-face. It means hearing from people who have the time and the resources to come to public meetings, even remote meetings. That's a commitment that people have to make. Not everyone can do that. So it means reaching out to the people who aren't showing up at meetings, which is something that I've tried to do, and I've tried to reach other constituencies that we're not necessarily hearing from. It also means hearing conflicting viewpoints sometimes, and through collaboration, trying to reach consensus the best that we can. So, governing a city is a team effort, and I've always really sought to and very eagerly sought public input, as has been noted in my council meetings, and we continue to.
Thank you. And for our next question, Mr. Crowley, if you would, please.
Thank you. How do you think the rollout of the cannabis industry has gone in Northampton, and would you have liked to see it done any differently?
Ms. Shara.
Well, this was an exciting new revenue source for us. And, I think that Northampton was smart and well placed to be one of the first communities to have recreational marijuana. I know that there has been concern that we didn't limit the amount of dispensaries that could be started here, but I think people can also note that it takes a long time for some of these businesses to get started, and I think that the market will eventually shake out as the other states around us start to flip and provide legal marijuana. I think that we will see that this market will shake out and there won't be so many businesses. But I think that it has been a really important thing for Northampton to do, and I appreciate the revenue source that it's provided. And I think that for the most part, it's been respectful.
Thank you very much. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, the city now has 28 host agreements with marijuana businesses. I think we've been altogether way too kind to them. The other piece here is that the city unilaterally decided to forego the 3.5% community impact fee. So there is a sales tax of 3% the city will continue to get as long as there are marijuana sales. But the 3.5%, we are the only city in Massachusetts, as far as I know, that has chosen to forego that voluntarily. I think that was wrong. And the idea was that, well, there really haven't been any adverse impacts. Every other city has found a way to go and spend those within the spirit and letter of the law. And furthermore, given that it's only 5 years, I'm concerned that if a business should start to sell marijuana and we're not collecting it, they could make the case, well, your 5 years are up. It was from when we started, not just when you started to impose the fees. I'm not sure that's clear. Look, I'm also was very involved with the legislation. I wrote an op-ed in the Daily Hampshire Gazette, and I pushed for planning changes and a city ordinance change that led to mitigation of air filters on the marijuana businesses.
Very good. Next question.
Okay. Actually, this is the last one, but I probably can dig up another. Why do you want to be mayor of Northampton?
Very good. All right. And so we begin that with you, Mr. Warner.
Well, this is kind of my closing statement here, but I'll summarize little bits of it as well too. But look, there are two reasons. I jumped into this race because I saw that the candidates who were in the race, I didn't feel that they had the professional experience that a city of this size required. And the second piece was I thought there was this ideological litmus test that was making the city do some choices that I think were not in the best interest of the city as a whole or consistent with our values and our goals. So I felt there was a need to step up here. So I'm prepared to do that. Look, the campaign itself has been a pleasure and a challenge. It has been interesting. It has been fun. I think being mayor would be the same things. And I think I have a lot to offer the city. I'm very happy living here in Northampton, and I want to stay that way. I will do the best to keep it as a positive experience, one that is affordable, one that is just, one that is sustainable for the years to come.
Ms. Shara.
Well, I love Northampton. I hope my dedication and my work and all the time that I give to the city make that clear. But I also think it's really important to state that and to share one's devotion and love. So I just want to make that clear. I think this is a really, really special community, as I said, and because I think it's special because of the people of Northampton and all the ways that they step up every single day. I think that I'm the person who has the best experience for this job. I have extensive municipal experience. I have built strong relationships with the people who do the actual work in Northampton. And so I can think of nothing that would mean more to me than to be able to work with them every day for the city that I so love. And as I said before, I think that this is a really pivotal time for Northampton. There are key things that we're working on that will be transformative for our city. And I want to make sure that I see them through.
Thank you very much. Okay, now this really is our last question. So it's fortunate that you're still on the screen. And if you would, please. Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
Thank you. As mayor, you're the chief executive officer. How would you, for voters, describe your leadership style?
How would you what?
Your leadership
style.
How would you hope they describe your leadership style?
How would you?
How would you describe your leadership style?
Oh,
Sure.
Oh, me first. I would say that my leadership style is collaborative and that I'm a team player. I love working on teams and working with people. That is something that I'm most excited about. I think of cities as living, sort of breathing organisms. They're constantly changing, and cities are made of people. And that's what I love, is to work directly with people on things that I matter most. So I would say I believe in strong communication. That's what I do for a living. I'm a communications manager. And I believe in having a really collaborative process with the people that I work with. And, as I've said, our department heads are truly remarkable professionals who are experts in their field. And so I look forward to working with them and also learning so much from them about the daily work that they do for our city.
Mr. Warner, same question.
Sure. My leadership style is being informed, understanding the processes that the departments would have, or that the issues that people are dealing with, making sure I do my homework, and then choosing paths that are both that maintain complete integrity and are being done fairly and applied to all people in a common manner. There is nothing that's going to apply in one neighborhood that doesn't apply in the other, and all the measures in terms of good management are available on my website. are things that I wouldn't seek to go and impose throughout all the departments. You know, a lot of it is also just being persuasive, understanding what is right, what is just, what is fair, what is affordable, what is sustainable, what is reversible. These are the things that I have to do professionally all the time. And these are the things that I'm able to go and convey to the constituents or to the departments, and that is the management style. I mean, this is not a my way or highway. It is making sure that we see it eye to eye and being fair about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Warner. And now we're going to conclude the question and answer part of our forum, and we'll do that with closing statements by each candidate in reverse order from their opening statements, which means, Mr. Warner, that we begin with you.
Okay, look, I'm glad Gina loves the city. I love this city too. My wife and I have raised our kids here. We love our neighbors. We have plenty of good friends. But I can't shake the feeling that we're veering away from good sense and thoughtful, responsible governance. Cutting the police budget last year without a thoughtful assessment, canceling the arts biennial, seeking state legislation to give votes to 16-year-olds and non-US citizens. Even just last week, supporting a farm labor bill in the city council resolution without even the courtesy of checking with the city's own agricultural advisory board, going forward with the plans for redesign of Main Street without the comprehensive transportation analysis, signing 28 host agreements for marijuana. These are not living up to the highest hopes we have for our city. These are not the best actions of a sensible and well-run city. We can do better, and that's the path I want to offer. So I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Shara.
Thank you. Thank you again. Sorry.
You have the last word.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and the Gazette for hosting this forum and for helping the voters of Northampton make an informed decision about the future of our city. The biggest issue facing Northampton is how to make our city more affordable, accessible, sustainable, and equitable. That requires progressive action on a number of fronts, including climate, housing, public safety, education, supporting our businesses, reimagining downtown, and creating a municipal broadband network. So we can move the process forward on broadband, I urge you to please vote yes on question 1 on November 2nd. As Finance Committee Chair, I know how to manage the budget, preserve our AAA bond rating, and stretch our tax dollars. I am proud to have been endorsed by the recently retired Finance Director for the City of Northampton based on her years working with me. I know that moving Northampton forward is not a one-person job. I know you can't make good decisions without putting in the work to listen to all voices. I encourage you to learn more about me and my vision and read and watch testimonials from supporters on my website at glshara.com. I'm ready to work for you. I'm ready to work with you. And I ask for your vote on November 2nd for mayor.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. This was a lengthy and full debate and great questions to Dan and Jean. And now I just have to thank our co-sponsor, the Daily Hampshire Gazette, and also our thanks to Northampton Open Media, where you can view a taped copy of this forum. And particular thanks to the candidates and the community of question submitters and viewers. We at the League of Women Voters believe that your participation in events like these is what makes democracy happen. Registration to vote in Northampton closed October 13th. You can apply to vote by mail until October 27th. Polling hours for the November 2nd general election are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Early voting is available starting Saturday, October 23rd for the next 7 days. The deadline to apply to vote by mail is October 27th. Further information, applications, instructions, and polling place locations are all available on the City of Northampton website. Good night, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.